Hey, so welcome everybody. I'm Sumedha, and I've held a couple of these sessions for the Sacred Mountain Sangha before, and I'm very happy to be here. So, so for people who've been here before, you'll know the session lasts about an hour, and then there's 15 minutes for questions. So if anyone needs to leave after the hour, you can do. And we'll do some chanting and a guided meditation, and then I'll offer some dharma reflections. Just waiting for the last people to join. So as we're waiting, we can really also, I really love Ajahn Sucitto, who was one of my teachers. He was saying, when we're waiting, our listening can be here too. And so that reminder that what seem like the spaces in between are actually really valuable places to pay attention. We can be establishing our body presence, establishing our listening, establishing our sense of connection to this moment. And I'd like to start with the chanting this week. So I will share the screen. And we'll start with the refuges, paying homage to the Buddha, the refuges on page 3. And then we will go on to page 4, the recollection of the Triple Jewel. And then after that, we can do a mantra. So I'll just check that the sound is on the correct setting. Okay. Can everybody see the chanting book there? Yeah, okay. So I chant in the Thai style, which is how they chanted in the monastery I was in. So, but if you have your own way of chanting, it's a luxury of Zoom that you can chant in your own style, in your own space. So please join in. Paying homage to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, so that which is awakened, the teachings or nature, and to this community of practitioners that goes back over the ages and can be a huge support for our practice. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Iti piso bhagava arahang Samma Sambuddho Vijacharana Sampano Sugato Lokavidu Anutaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Sata Dewa Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditito Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachatang Veditabo Vinyuhiti Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Ujupatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Nyayapatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Samichipatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Yadidam Chatari Purisa Yugania Tapurisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Ahuneyo Ineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anutarang Punyaketam Lokasati. And then we can end with the mantra on page 3, which the first mantra, Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munay Soha. So homage to the great silent sage, the Tathagata, thus gone. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munaye Soha. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munaye Soha. Tayata Om Muni Maha Munaye Tayata Om Muni Maha Munaye Soha. Tayata Om Muni Maha Munaye Soha. Just letting the vibrations of those chants touch our hearts, come through our bodies. Noticing how the sounds of the chants of my voice arise into space. That is receiving the sounds, receiving our own being here. Maybe feeling the vibrations of the chants as they enliven or settle your body. And just letting ourselves arrive here. Feeling your body as it settles into the chair or on the ground. And really gathering your attention, gathering your listening, just into the very simple arrival. The invitation are, as we still our body, to gather here with our body, our heart, our awareness. Sitting as we make this space for meditation and connecting in community. That we can let that intention and that connectedness maybe create a safety in which we can allow ourselves to arrive, allow ourselves to be here in a different way than when we have a lot of demands on us. Feeling the touch of the earth under your feet, under your bottom. Inviting you to arrive. Letting your posture find its a way that is comfortable. There's not too much straining. We're gathering ourselves here for listening, not for forcing. And bringing this tone of care, listening very consciously into our being. And allowing ourselves to touch the quiet, not so noticed places in our being. where our body is touching the earth, for example, or our hands touching our legs. We gently allow our attention to taste those places where there's very quiet, vibrant contact. We don't have to run after, strive for, push away. That is just here, inviting us to settle and connect. If your mind's very agitated, it can be a real kindness to invite it to pay attention to some quieter aspect of our being. And if the touch of the earth is too subtle, we can even press our fingers together to just notice. Bodily contact without pushing, without pulling. Just receiving this clearness. Or as the Buddha pointed towards so beautifully, we can notice the quietness of our breath. How often when we're caught in all our mental chatter or the things we need to do or the things that we don't want. How often do we notice the quietness of our breath that is consistently here, nourishing? We notice when there's something painful, if there's smoke or if we have difficulty. Maybe if there's a lovely smell, we notice our breath more as it comes, the smell comes in with our breath. This breathing is very faithfully, quietly nourishing us. Giving us a rhythm, and an aliveness, steadiness. Every single moment of our life. And yet we often ignore this breathing because it's so quiet, so faithful. Can we honor it with some attention, gather our being? To these places where life is sustaining us. Where we're connected, interconnected. We often miss, often don't give attention to. And can we also notice maybe the quietness of our listening? Sometimes when we use the word listening, presence, awareness, it can stimulate a thinking process. What's that? Where do I find it? What if it's right here, the listening that is just hearing my voice? Listening that is feeling the touch of your body on the ground. And you don't have to struggle to find this. We can Maybe just allow ourselves to incline our attention that way, rest into that which is naturally aware within us. We're inviting ourselves to gather, to listen, and to taste into our own being, what it's like to be here. We'll be noticing some of the quieter places that our habits might usually have us ignore. And this is our own journey, each one of us tasting into what is naturally present, sustaining for us. As we come towards the end of the formal meditation, if there's any sense of settling, of listening, anything that has connected for you in the meditation, letting yourself taste that and remembering that our listening, our connectedness, the quiet presence of our heart comes with us as we move, as we engage in different ways. We can always give our attention back into the breath, into the connection with the earth, into our awareness, and let these sustain our presence as we engage. We bring some depth and fullness of our being. Each moment. If we completely lose touch, spin out, really noticing we don't have to judge that, but can just start again. So the lovely image in the Dhammapada of like a water jar filling drop by drop. And come back into just a drop of presence with our breath, with our body, with our listening. And bring this with us each moment. And we can end there. Meditation. And thank you all for your presence. So I thought to follow on this week a little bit. I listened to Adam's talk from last week and Gulu the week before. So I know Gulu talked about the importance of feeling and how much we get pushed around there between wanting, not wanting. And it's a very key point of bringing presence in order to cut some of the maybe habit tendencies that go on around, oh, pleasant, I want that, pleasant, I don't want that, etc. And then Adam's theme of dharma as our natural inheritance, which is something that also I feel very touched by, because it can help us to shift or to notice if we're holding a model of kind of somehow practice as some thing we're going to get something from, or we're going to create something new. We're going to, because so much of our conditioned lives in our societies at the moment is that it's like, oh, I certainly came to practice like that. Oh, I need to sort this out and that out, and I get this peaceful mind state and everything. And it's really true that practice can help us to deepen into a sense of ease and responsiveness, maybe more awake responsiveness within ourselves, and peacefulness. And yet there's something about the letting go of having a model of what we're going to get and strive for that is also really important. So there's that lovely quote by Joseph Campbell, isn't there, which says something like, we have to let go of the life we have planned in order to meet the life that is waiting for us. Something like that. And practice is rather good at pulling the rug out from under our feet anyway. So that's quite a good thing. But what I wanted to point to in these contemplations around feeling and dharma as something that it can be naturally present within us. So a path of listening, a path of more ease, more freedom, awakeness as being something that is naturally possible within us. I wanted to point a little bit this week to something that has been very important in my own practice, which is around exploring neutral feeling. Which on the surface level of it, it's like, can seem pretty boring. It's like, so even like coming to the breath, well, why, okay, I'll come to my breath, what's the point of this or whatever. And, but for me, as I have come to explore neutral feeling, and the Buddha certainly points to it as something that is worthy of exploration, it is an area of our lives that can help us to deepen into the natural resources that are already here for us, and that we ignore, essentially. So pleasant feeling, as we know, tends to pull us towards it. Unpleasant feeling tends to push, we tend to want to go away from it. And neutral feeling, we just don't pay it attention. We literally ignore it. And so in the meditation I was just guiding there, like what I was wanting to guide attention to was towards how resourcing and how rich and how insightful it can become to pay attention to, say, embodied knowing, to the connection with the earth, to the breath, which are all things that, or to spaciousness, or to our own listening. So these are all things that they're very often kind of somewhere there, we do choose to focus on them as meditation objects, but we do that because they are such a source of richness and insight. So when I was much younger, I used to do art. When I was much younger, still do art, but I was doing art classes. And my teacher, any of you who do art will know this, that they would say to focus on the negative space around an object, because when we say tree, it's like you draw your idea of a tree. You don't draw the tree that's in front of you, because we come with so many preconditioned ideas that we just draw our idea, essentially. And so the teacher would say, well, draw the space. Notice the space around the tree. Which is something that it's like, well, how often do we do that? How often do we come into a room, a meeting room, say, and notice the space around the people in it? And yet when we do start to notice, say, the space that is here for us, it can be incredibly releasing, because we start to notice, oh, I'm coming into this room, I'm focusing on these people, I have all of these habit patterns in relation to these people, or I have all this anticipation, etc. And we have no space to start to notice this is what's going on. So if we come into the room and we have an intention to notice that which is quiet, that which is at ease, it can radically alter our perception and way of engaging, be that externally or be that with our own thoughts. Is this making sense? So Ajahn Sumedha, for instance, he would say, in terms of working with thought, He would say, notice the space between the words. Notice the space around the words. Oh, great, thank you. Somebody's saying, Dara is saying, Rachel Whiteread does an incredible work about negative three-dimensional space. Thank you. So, so Ajahn Sumedha would say, we get so obsessed with our thinking, and even in meditation, we want to, work with it, work it out, maybe find a solution, etc. And he would say, notice the space between the words. And he'd say, consciously think, I am an unenlightened being. and notice the space between the words, notice the space around the words, notice that there is consciousness there, which is a very, it's like, once you start to notice it, it's like, oh yeah, that's so subtle, so easy to ignore, and yet so powerful, so life-changing. So this started to, that certainly has had a huge impact, can have a huge impact in practice. And then it can start to spark our curiosity to like, well, okay, so if there's this very subtle but very powerful experience that's here in terms of spaciousness, in terms of consciousness, what happens if I start to explore, say, just where my body is touching the earth? And when we start to open to that experience, we can start. So the thing about neutral experience is when we start to move away the ignorance, the ignoring, we start to touch into and deepen into the experience that is actually here for us. So the experience of connectedness, the experience of aliveness, even the insight of impermanence. So often if we take impermanence as a mind, something we're going to chase with the mind, it's like, oh, well, how do I see that? But actually our body is pulsating and changing all of the time. When we can start to tune into that in an open way. And so we learn about impermanence, we learn about interconnectedness through these very quiet places in us, or the breath. And this can bring us a lot of safety, a lot of steadiness, a lot of opening also into equanimity. So I have a friend, somebody I know, who she runs breath workshops, and she was on a crowded bus in the UK somewhere, in a city, and she was just doing her breathing on this crowded bus. And this doing her breathing, she was being with her breathing on the crowded bus, and apparently a whole group of people got on who were very noisy and very agitated. And there was a little boy on the bus with his family, or with some people, and he kind of was getting quite distressed by the very loud, agitated, etc., etc. And this woman who was just breathing, she said she didn't do anything. She didn't, call the boy. She didn't. And this boy, very naturally, he was about 3, he moved from the front of the bus to the back of the bus where she was sitting and just kind of leaned into because she was just in being with her breath in that way. She was creating some safety because she was connected in this field of agitation. And so there's something so powerful and so compassionate for our own being and for the bigger life that we're part of, to start to reconnect in this way to these very quiet, very humble, very neutral, apparently seeming neutral places in ourselves that are actually a whole field of richness. So be that body sensation when we're not in pain or when we're not in pleasure. How often do we notice our body when it's like, it's not going yay, and it's not going, oh no, I don't like that, or it's not painful? Actually, there's a deep well-being in starting to notice the body as it is present, might be a pain arising here, a pleasure arising here, and there's a whole field of presence that is there in changing and yet kind of here for us. Or the breath, or the listening awareness. And I really love that the Buddha, he did talk about this, so we talk about the middle way between wanting to get away from. And this field of neutral feeling can help us to get a taste for being with things in a less grasping way. So notice with pleasant feeling, there's a pull, the grasping. With unpleasant, there's a wanting to get away from, and we can learn to release the grip of those graspings. But we get a taste of starting to how to do this when we start to be able to rest in just what is simply here, that which is neutral and that we don't notice. So there's a taste of restfulness that we can learn there that helps to inform our non-grasping. And this is part of what Adam, he was talking about the qualities of the Dharma leading inward, say. For me, this is part of it. It's like we're starting to come into a way of listening that is really getting in touch with how it is to be here in our fullness and stopping ignoring like huge parts of ourselves, basically, and the Buddha talks, there's a wonderful sutta called the Chula Vedala Sutta, which I like for several reasons. One of which is it's a teaching given by a nun, Dhammadina, and it's actually given to a layperson who the commentaries say was her ex-husband. So this is quite a shift in the Pali canon from the usual dynamic where the monks are discoursing to everybody, which is great too, but it's quite nice to have one where a nun is teaching. And there's a whole part of that teaching that is around working with feeling. And let me find it. Here we go. And in terms of neutral feeling, there's a lovely bit at the end. So they call it neither pleasant nor painful feeling, that which is neutral. And that which is hidden by ignorance, because we ignore it, literally ignorance, we ignore it. What lies on the other side of neither pleasant nor painful feeling? Ignorance lies on the other side of neither pleasant nor painful feeling. And then this bit I really love. What lies on the other side of ignorance when we start to pay attention? Clear knowing lies on the other side of ignorance. What lies on the other side of clear knowing? Release lies on the other side of clear knowing. What lies on the other side of release? Unbinding lies on the other side of release. And what lies on the other side of unbinding? And here, Dhammadina goes, you've gone too far, friend Visakha. You can't keep holding on up to the limit of questions. So she's like, basically, stop asking questions now. That's enough, because from that, ignorance, clear knowing, unbinding, it's like, we start again, don't we? We start another cycle of wanting to get hold of something. And then she says, and go to the Buddha and check it out with him. And the Buddha confirms Dhammadina's response. But I hope that what I find lovely about that is it's like we just have this layer of ignorance of what we're ignoring. And when we start to delve into that, there can be clear knowing. And we start to unbind ourselves there from the ways in which we cut ourselves off from our lives, or maybe we act in ways that are disconnected because we're not in touch with some of the deeper roots, the quieter places, which includes for me the whole vast field of awareness, of listening that we can start to become conscious of as we pay attention. Also the whole embodied way of knowing, the gifts. say the breath gives us, of connectedness, of vibrancy, of noticing impermanence, but also noticing we're part of an ongoing flow of life that is very sustaining. When we start to meet more difficult patterns that might destabilize, we have a much deeper root from which to meet those things. So So I'll end with a quote from John O'Donoghue, who I may have quoted before. He's an Irish Celtic philosopher poet who I really like, and he very much connects, kind of the inner listening with a sense of naturalness. And he uses some language that is more kind of Christian, but we can translate it in our own ways. When you take time to draw on your listening imagination, you will begin to hear the gentle voice at the heart of your life. It is deeper and surer than all the other voices of disappointment, unease, self-criticism, and bleakness. All holiness is about learning to hear the voice of your own soul or our own awareness. It is always there, and the more deeply you learn to listen, the greater surprises and discoveries that will unfold. To enter into the gentleness of your own soul or presence changes the tone and quality of your life. Your life is no longer consumed by hunger for the next event, experience, or achievement. You learn to come down from the treadmill and walk on the earth. You gain a new respect for yourself and others, and you learn to see how wonderfully precious this one life is. You begin to see through the enchanting veils of illusion that you had taken for reality, and you no longer squander yourselves on things and situations that deplete your essence. You know that your source is not outside you, and a new energy and passion awaken within. Oh, and all that from starting to delve into the bits we don't notice. So it's quite a good invitation. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much all for your presence and your being here and your contributions. So